Hello, everyone. It's always ominous when you're in like a quiet room waiting for people to come in and you like hear your voice for the first time. You're like, hello, everyone. I am so excited for today's live. I am going live with Dr. Mindy Pelz, and we're going to talk about so many cool things. I'm going to learn just as much as you guys are going to learn, because the more, I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but the more I think I know, the more I know that I don't know. And it's so frustrating because you think like, oh, this is amazing, I have all this information. And then you're like, oh, that opened up a whole new bag of worms that I had no idea existed. Hi, Dr. Mindy. Can you send me an invitation to go live with you so that you can join? I think you're new at lives. I'm semi-new. But Dr. Mindy is a doctor of chiropractic, and she is a wealth of information, of expertise, of hands-on. I'm trying to see here. Sorry, guys, I want to answer your questions, but I'm like trying to see for her to join. Oh, looks like there we go. Hi, Dr. Mindy. Okay. But what I love about her is she's like boots on the ground. The information is helpful.
I'm here.
Hi, yay!
I know. I laugh because I literally go live on every platform but Instagram. So yeah. I feel like a total novice, and I have to have Jessica help me. So anyway, sorry for the delay.
No, not at all. Honestly, we're all learning, and that's what I love about this space.
Yeah, agreed.
I need to have grace with myself big time first, and then I need to have grace with everybody else, because I'm just like, first of all, we're all making it up as we go along. Let's be honest. Right. We're all like adapting and hopefully adapting and changing and growing and learning, and that's why I have you on here today. I'm so grateful. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I just want to keep talking to you after our podcast interview. I'm like, I want to sit down and have a cup of tea with you and just keep chatting, because there's a lot to learn from each other.
No, I totally agree. I feel like our podcast was like an hour and a half, and
right.
You probably had to edit it down, and lives always go so long too. But as much as I love having one-on-one conversations, I also love having them so that we can open up the room for other people just to gain the knowledge. And I mean, yes, it's amazing for education and gaining knowledge, but it also just feels really good to maybe know you're not alone, you know, and because you and I talked a lot about just different things that we've been through and different struggles. And I know that it just resonates with so many people, but especially my audience, which is primarily women. And when it comes to, you know, especially, I mean, I opened up the box of fasting for today, but especially when it comes to fasting and when it comes to things like just our bodies that we've kind of left in like the mystery world of other people's hands. And what I love.
It's not kind of. We have.
I'm being nice. I know, I'm being nice.
Okay, is that how you play on these? You have to be nice.
I'm being politically correct.
Okay.
Is there such a thing anymore? I think with 2020, the term politically correct went out the window.
Right. Good question.
But what I love about you so much is that you're a doctor. And so with that typically is like, oh, okay, I'm just going to shut my mouth and listen to you, stereotypically. But what I love about you is that doesn't come first for you. I've never felt like in any of your podcasts, in any of the conversations that we have, which have been few, but still you can kind of, you know, even just with a few conversations, the doctor doesn't come first. The human comes first, and the learning, and you're such a good, well, you're such a good speaker. First of all, you're an amazing speaker.
Thank you.
But you're such a good listener. And a lot of those times that doesn't go hand in hand. You're either like a good talker and a good speaker, and then you kind of have a hard time sitting back and listening. But I love and appreciate that about you. That's why I wanted to introduce you to my audience as well, because
Thank
It's
you.
more about like the learning and the growing, and maybe the making of mistakes and then growing from those. And it's just a constant. I mean, I love what you did with chiropractic. You got out of chiropractic school, and I know you have a story with that, which I'll let you tell. But my favorite part, one of them, is when you learned that around 10 years ago there was a big shift, and you couldn't just do what you learned in chiropractic anymore to do the certain manipulations to have these results, because then you all of a sudden found out like, oh no, humanity isn't what it was before.
Yeah.
There is a lot going on, and you address all of those things, and you keep on adapting, and you keep on growing, and you keep on sharing. And that just, I love you for that.
Thank you.
I love you for that. So do you want to share? Because I don't like doing other people's bios. It feels so scripted and weird.
I know, me too. Me too. I'm like, I'll never, like, when you come on my podcast, I'm like, I'm never reading your bio because I just want to know the human there. Like, I want to.
No.
Your bio is more your external, view of how people sort of perceive you, but I love the internal view. So, my history and how I came really to understanding everything I know about fasting really came through the lens that the modern world has changed. Yeah. And when I've been in practice for 25 years, and the first 10 years of my practice, we would just adjust people and people would get well. And there was about a 3-year period after I hit that 10-year mark that people stopped getting well. And I didn't quite understand what was going on. It was a very subtle sort of shift. And I think at first, to be totally transparent, I was like, I think my patients are lying to me. I think they're like over exaggerating their symptoms. But then I started to like see that new people coming into me, they didn't come into me with just one symptom anymore, especially women. They came in with like a laundry list of symptoms. Yeah. And then that morphed into people coming in with a laundry list of symptoms. And then they would say, whatever you do, I don't want to go back to my medical doctor and get on more medication, be told that I need another antidepressant. Like, I need a lifestyle solution to this. Yeah. And that really opened my mind to see that the modern world we're living in right now is not what you and I grew up in. Like, I know your kids are younger than mine, but the peanut butter sandwiches that our kids are eating today is not the peanut butter sandwich you and I ate. Yeah. And you could take everything, the dinner table looks different than the dinner table that most families are having now. The schooling is looking like there's so much that's changed. Across the board. So we have to change our lifestyle to meet that demand. And that really started me on my quest. And this is what I love about fasting is I don't believe in the magic mushroom. I don't believe that any health, happiness, anything is outside of us. This is why I resonate with you, because your spiritual and mental philosophies are so internal. And I think we got to do that. We got to go back to, we heal our soul, we heal our body, we heal our mind with our own internal power. We don't give it away to a doctor. We don't give it away to a pill. We don't give it away to a friend. We own it for ourselves. And what we're innately intelligent and programmed to do would just blow your mind. If I sat and told you exactly what happens when I just take food out of the equation, what you're chemically programmed to do is unreal.
Yeah, so I want to get into that because you obviously, again, as the doctor, you have so much research and so much science and so much evidence behind that. I think to kind of go back to what you were saying about not giving your power away, for me, maybe growing up in my generation it was easy to do that because I was the second generation post-war. So my mom still worked hard. It was very much that post-war generation of you work for it, you take responsibility for it. You spend like the days in the kitchen because you're not gathering food anymore. You have a grocery store, so it is easier, but you're still making your food at home. Whereas for me, cooking for my kids, like you said, around the 10 year ago mark, or maybe a little bit more, is the microwave, the TV dinners, The going out to eat is much cheaper and easier because everyone's lifestyle now is so much more stressful and busy. And so we're not taking the time to make the food. And it's easy to give the responsibility away because we don't want to take the responsibility for ourselves. And that's absolutely what happened with me growing up. My depression, the victimhood that I had, like just that identity of being a victim, because I didn't want to take responsibility, because everything now is so easily accessible that you don't want to do the inner work, because it is hard. It's hard and it takes time. There is no magic pill. There is no magic mushroom. Like you said, it takes work and training, and you fall down and you have to train to get back up. Like you said too on our podcast about mindset. It's not, you don't just wake up happy, you work on it daily. And then you realize that happiness is fleeting. It really is the inner joy that comes from the mindset, and like so many things, but you have to be willing to put in the work. Agreed. And there's that. Well, keep on.
Yeah, it's so much easier nowadays to not have to put in the work. Like if we just take the topic of depression, if I'm feeling depressed, I can go and binge watch Netflix for 10 hours. I can get on the phone and look at like an hour's worth of TikToks that make me laugh. But all that is just creating an external distraction so that I don't have to deal or create new pathways to be able to strengthen my resilience. Yeah. And again, this is why I love fasting. And you and I chatted about this because my first exposure to you was watching you get in all those cold baths. And when I was doing that, I was like, you had me fascinated. And you said, go back and look at how I transitioned through the years. But I was like, why is she doing that? And and then on the podcast, you really talked about how it built up mental resilience, and that I realized that fasting's doing the same thing. Yep. It's stepping out of your comfort zone and saying, I'm not going to eat all day. I'm actually going to remove food, and then I'm going to sit back and watch what my body's capable of. And the body will talk to you. It doesn't just stop. And all your limiting beliefs about food and maybe things that your mother instilled in your brain, all of that will show up.
Scarcity, being poor, like all the emotional attachment that we have now in our culture, especially to food, goes so deep. So deep. Like when you go, and it goes so deep, and it's also validated. You know, the moodiness is validated, the hangry from the Snickers bars, like it's all validated. It's all almost joked about, but it's validated, where everything is instant gratification. And if you don't get it, you can cry about it, and you can be in a bad mood like a little 2-year-old. Yeah. And that's just the culture that we live in. And also the lies, you know, over the years, because how many years ago was it where 6 meals a day keeps your metabolism going, eat 6 small meals a day. Yeah. I mean, I was around for that. That's what I did when I was modeling. You know, and you just believe all these certain things. I never once looked at the science behind it, never once knew what it was doing to my body. All I knew is the different things that I tried just made me feel different in different seasons. And until I found what worked for me in my age group, first of all, because that I never took into accountability either. Which I love, again, that you address at the forefront is age, cycle, knowing your cycle, how different men are from women, which is a huge part of fasting, which I'd love for you to get into as well. And then just not only taking the science, but you have your own personal experience, just like I do. And that's honestly, for me, that's more of a testimony than a whole medical journal. Because if something has all the science backed on it, and I just still feel like crap, then something's not working for me. Right. You know, give me all the science, but I still feel like crap. And it's like, great. Well, I guess I'll just try another pill. Yes. So I have so much to say on that. So the first thing that I would say is that I really feel like we, especially for women, we don't honor a woman's intuition. And we are so wise as to what our body needs. So I can't tell you how many people I've sat with that when I first teach them fasting, I'll say, okay, we're going to go ahead and push your breakfast back a couple of hours. And they will say, oh my God, thank you so much. I hate breakfast. I just thought breakfast was the most important meal of the day.
Do you know where
Totally.
I don't know if we talked about this. Do you know where we got breakfast is the most important meal of the day? When Kellogg's cereal came out with cornflakes, they needed a slogan to get everybody to buy it. So they said, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. This is back in the 70s. Yeah. And we're still thinking that's the truth. And I have looked for the science on it. Mm-hmm. And eating 6 meals a day doesn't speed up your metabolism. Breakfast is not the most important meal of the day. Counting calories is not going to do anything for you. But tapping into your intuition, tapping into the intelligence that you already came designed with. Like, this is not like you have to have any money. You don't have to have time. You have an internal healing mechanism that is ready to go to work for you. It's just waiting for you to take food out of the equation and to start to train it so that it can kick in and give you this neurochemical experience like you've never experienced before.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's healing. It's healing on a physical level, as you will talk about, and it's also healing on an emotional level and a spiritual level. Like, everything is so connected. And when you take out, like you said, the program that we've been programmed by food companies and programmed by whatever else is programming the food companies, as we all know what it leads to. When you take that out, you really feel this sense of freedom and an innate sense of control. You don't feel out of control. You don't feel like you're just being blown by every single commercial or every single flipping billboard on the road. You can really be like, no, that actually doesn't work for me. And when you also, as a woman, know your cycle and you know how important that is, and you work with that instead of against it. And when you know your cycle and when you know what's happening to your body the week before your cycle and why that's so much more important to be in tune with, and to not just like throw in the towel and binge and just be like, oh, I'm just PMSing, so I need to binge. But knowing, no, it's actually your body is telling you that it needs more. Just in case it's getting pregnant, it just needs a little bit more. And when I know about that, it is such a sense of relief and such a sense, again, of control, that I can control these things and I'm not being controlled by my emotions or by outward, external pressures. It just brings so much freedom. And
you can love yourself.
Women, you need that.
Yeah. I always tell my resetter group online that really my number one goal is I want you to love living in your body. I don't care what size it is. I don't care how much sleep it gets. I just want you to get up in the morning and go, I love this. This is amazing.
Yeah. And I feel strong and I feel beautiful and I have focus and I have energy and I'm happy. And yet so many women, that's not happening. And it's not happening because of a variety of reasons. One is that we have a healthcare system that doesn't acknowledge that women should do things differently. So, they don't look at our cycle or as you go through menopause, the disappearing cycle. There's no acknowledgement of that. We also have a society, as you know, that has a picture perfect version of what a woman should look like. And there's no in all the different stages. Right. The perfect pregnant woman, the perfect postpartum woman, the perfect menopause woman. Yeah.
Right. Oh, I'd like to do the picture of the perfect menopause woman. She'd be like, she would not. There's nothing perfect about the menopause or the pregnant woman.
Or any stage of woman. There's nothing perfect. There's a beauty and a power in all the different seasons, but it's nothing like perfection. Nothing. It's the furthest thing from perfection. It's nature, and it's the most amazing, powerful thing.
Agreed.
But it's also out of control. It's wild, and it's hard for companies, and it's hard for the powers that be to have this wild, uncontrollable power that's within us.
Well said. Yeah. So
all of a sudden, it's like the powers that be.
We may have lost a few people on that one. One of my favorite, so the Menopause Reset, the book that I wrote that's coming out in the spring, I wrote it, and it's because I wanted to give women over 40 a lifestyle manual. I'm so against the magic mushroom. I just wanted the women over 40 to know their lifestyle needs to change because their ovaries are done. I mean, their ovaries are like, I'm going to slip away here for a little bit. And it's like, it's going to take me about 10 or 15 years. I'm just going to bow out, and I'm going to hand over the job of all your sex hormones. I'm going to hand it over to your adrenals. Hopefully they're okay. Like, and nobody talks about this. They're just like, you're crazy. You know,
Good
like,
luck.
I keep thinking about how many divorces must happen over 40 because women's hormones are totally tanked. And one of the hormones that I think is so pivotal and matches to what you're saying about right before our cycle is that I actually learned more about progesterone going through my 40s than I did in my 20s when it was helping me get pregnant. Because progesterone is the hormone that calms you, and it comes out in such a huge way the week before your cycle. And if you don't feed it things like carbohydrates and chocolate and beans, squash, like nature's food, and if you don't rest and like say no to more activities and stop running marathons during that time, if you don't honor that your body's trying to give you this incredible chemical, you will feel cranky and PMSy, and you will lose your period. You won't be able to get pregnant if you're, fertility age. Like, there's so much destruction that happens from not honoring that one hormone and overriding what it's telling you because you think you're a failure if you give into it.
Yeah, and most of us at that age are living, I hate saying most of us, but a lot of us are stereotypically living with a man during that time, right? And then when the men, if we're not even educated on it, you can kind of count on the men not being educated on it, and then they just see you as crazy because you're looking for validation from all of this turmoil that's going on. That really isn't turmoil. It just really is this beautiful way of cycling your body. That if you don't understand, the person that you're with, it's not going to understand. So and then it's going to be major, major chaos that doesn't have to be there.
Yeah. I told my husband the other day, I said, I'm pretty sure I'd never want to hear any advice a man would give on menopause, because menopause is for starters, it's a 10 to 15 year journey, and it's a freaking extreme sport. It's like managing your disappearing hormones is an all-in event. And until you're sitting in a body that's depleted of estrogen and progesterone and felt the level of anxiety that runs through your mind and runs through your body, like, you can look at a textbook, you can tell me what I'm supposed to do, but until you've actually lived in that body, it's hard to really understand.
Yeah. And I mean, that goes with pregnancy. It goes with postpartum depletion. It goes with so many, just like we will never know what it's like to be in a teenage boy's body.
Agree.
It goes along. We don't know what we don't know. And again, to have grace, but also then to have knowledge and to arm ourselves with that knowledge, which is what you're giving life to me in, which I know that so many of my audience is loving that too. And I'm going to save this, by the way, again, I'm going to save it to an IGTV and also to my website, so that we can just watch it over and over again. Because I think it's so important to arm ourselves, especially, my goodness, especially going into these times where we are completely out of control and no one knows what's going to happen next. No one really knows what's happening with the economy. No one knows. Like, there's this scarcity mentality that is more prevalent now than I've ever known, which is why, so I'm doing a fasting challenge. I know you're doing a resetter challenge as well. You have them going on all the time. So if anyone's interested too, just please go to Dr. Mindy's page, Instagram. You have an incredible podcast, YouTube channels. Like, she has everything. So go there and follow her and join her groups. It's an incredible sense of community, because we need community and we need knowledge. And we need action, like, for ourselves, because if we don't take that action for ourselves, we will not be able to take care of our children.
It's so true. And do you know, when I dove into like really kind of unpacking hormones, I started to see that women do health better in community. Like, we were designed to do health in community.
We were designed to be in tribes.
Yeah. like hormonally designed. This is not like woo-woo. If you look at, there's a hormonal hierarchy, and our sex hormones are controlled by our insulin levels, and our insulin levels are controlled by our cortisol levels, and our cortisol levels are controlled by oxytocin. Oxytocin is the queen of all hormones. And you and I are getting oxytocin right now, just enjoying this conversation. Women get oxytocin when they just gather together and are just in community together. We get oxytocin when we're with our kids, when we're nursing, when we're giving birth. I mean, there's so many places we get oxytocin. And yet then when we set out to go to fix our health, we do it on our own. Like we go solo. It makes no sense.
It's so bizarre. It's the weirdest thing. And again, we can go into all the rabbit holes of, you know, when doctors' offices were set up and when women started giving birth on, you know, on their backs. And, you know, you really can, but you can trace it back to that. It comes back to control, and it comes back to, you know, all of that stuff where we were designed to give birth in the woods with other women holding us up, and, you know, a midwife coming along and giving us an enema, and then like holding onto a tree. But like you said, we're missing all of the benefits, and almost like living in this world, especially with women, this world of comparison and gossip and competition, where it's just like the whole women supporting women thing is lost. And we're doing ourselves a massive disservice.
Massive disservice, because we are more powerful together hormonally, not just like woman power. Like, you put us together and we got oxytocin going like nobody's business, which is going to regulate all the other hormones. We are more powerful together, and yet we're comparing. We are not supporting each other. I was on a podcast interview the other day, and I said, you know, that week before our period, when we need progesterone, if we're go, we are destroying our progesterone levels. Yet as women, we don't say, like, if a girlfriend says, hey, do you want to go out to eat, or do you want to join us doing this activity? We have this FOMO, like, oh no, I don't want to miss out. And then our girlfriends will say, like, come on, you should come with us. And really, that is the time we should be home on the couch with a bucket of ice cream, watching Netflix, chilling out, and we should all support each other in that moment. We shouldn't be like, come on, don't be a party pooper. I see a world where we're like, oh, what day of your cycle is it?
Exactly.
Day 21? Oh, you should.
Oh, girl, you should stay home.
We'll come join you on the couch watching Netflix, and I'll bring the pizza and ice cream.
Yeah, totally. That's what a supportive tribe feels like. You know, and that's the beauty also of being a woman, which I just love because of all the things that you said. Like, there's beauty and power in that when you have the knowledge of what's actually happening, and you're not working against it. You know, so like for me, it's changed my female relationships. It's changed my relationship with my husband massively, because it takes guilt and craziness out of the equation, and it works beautifully, even just for for the sexual relationship in our marriage, where it's like, it's not just this plateaued, it's this beautiful cycle that, you know, when you're going to cycle, you know, when you're wanting to feel more intimate, you know, when you're wanting to feel a little bit more crazy, like, and it's not this guilt or unknown. It's this beautiful cycle that you can give more, and your husband then also knows when it's like, you know, back off time, but it's not because, oh, I have a headache and I don't want to be with you. He doesn't take it personally. There's power in knowing like how to ride that wave together. It just changes everything.
You know how many women don't even know the ebbs and flows of their hormones like that? Like,
oh, I know.
I mean, and I to be fully transparent, I didn't fully understand them until I tried to unwind what was happening to me going through menopause in my 40s and perimenopause. It was like, what's going on with me hormonally? So I like went back to my textbooks, and I was like, oh, okay, that makes perfect sense. But then you chat with other women, nobody knows when estrogen is going up and progesterone is going down, and you don't, and this is the problem with came in. That was interesting. There's no, wow, that was exciting. That was something new. there's no way we just don't acknowledge that there's this ebb and flow in our 30-day cycle. And I don't know, we should, I don't know, what did you learn when you were 13? I remember learning, oh, you got a period, now you can get pregnant, and you're going to have some PMS symptoms. You might want to manage those.
There was a lot of, yeah, I think, again, because we're one of the only generations that really talked about it. Like my mom actually talked to me about it, but not from the sense of how we're talking about it. That would have been like an absolute disgrace, shameful, private. That's all private. Our periods are private. Sex is private. Anything intimate is private. Like, how are we supposed to know anything and share anything? Yeah. You know, so I did learn a little bit from my mom, but certainly not as much as I learned on my own. And again, just like you too, I'm embarrassed to say I didn't really tap into the power of my cycle until my late 30s, mid to late 30s, until it was like, you know, and I was having babies in that time too. Oh, and there's just so much that I wish I would have known, and so much that I want to share, because I go back to the old me. I go back to the depressed me. And this is why I stay up and I get cold sores and I don't take care of myself, because I want to keep on sharing, because I know what it's like to feel so alone and to feel so lost, and just like really to have no one, and you're too depleted and you're too exhausted to even open up a book, or to even like, you know, words on the page don't make sense because you would have to read the entire book. And you don't have the energy, and you don't have the hope, and you don't have that. So it's like, I want to help so many women, just like I know that you do.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing this fasting challenge. Awesome. But I really want to have women have the knowledge behind it, because a woman DM'd me yesterday that said, you know, a couple of years ago, I did a 10-day water fast with a group of 20 men.
Oh God. No.
And she's like, and I felt like crap, so I don't like fasting. And I was like, first of all,
oh my God,
don't fast with a group of 20 men. I'm begging you.
No, don't. It's like when we get messages of women that are like, I've been fasting and I feel great, but my hair is falling out, and it's like coming out in clumps. And I'm like, okay, wait. We got to back up here. Yeah. The goal of fasting is not to fit into your skinny jeans and be bald. The goal of fasting is to work with your rhythm.
That you get at the end of how many days you went without food. Because guess what? That's not fasting. That's an eating disorder.
Yes,
like that's when it changes. When your relationship to food changes. Food isn't bad. Food is incredible.
Right.
But your body's also incredible when you remove food and see what your body can actually do. And then bring it back in. And then it's just this beautiful cycle of what we've lost, because everything's so available to us right now.
How I phrase it, that I think is a way that people can grab it, because we do become zealots for our diet, for our path. We're like, I'm vegan, I'm keto, I'm carnivore, I'm a faster, right? Like
you find identity in it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's our identity. Is I always say that the goal is to build a fasting lifestyle. And there are 3 keys to a fasting lifestyle. One is that you vary your fasts. And for women, this is the most important. I've figured out that there's about 7 different fasts that will work well for most people. Women really have to vary it quite a bit according to her hormonal cycle. The second thing is you have to acknowledge that food heals. So fasting heals, but food heals too. Yeah. So don't give up on food just because you found fasting. And then the third is that when you do it in a community, your health will thrive. And if we just pick those 3 things, and looking at how we eat, what we eat, when we eat, and who we eat with, and who we fast with, we would solve so many hormonal problems. Yeah.
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, I want to I'll go into your Instagram, and I'll just repost a bunch of stuff to my stories, because I mean, I want to write everything down, pen and paper, but I know that you have slides and you have stuff that you've written out. So I'll share that with my community, because it's key points that will completely change your fast and will completely change your life. Yeah. Because fasting, I mean, so many things changed my life. Chiropractic actually was a huge thing that changed my life, because my husband did all of his prerequisites for chiropractic.
Oh, you said that. Yeah.
Yeah. And
that's
then
cool.
he turned to modeling instead. But now he's back.
Yeah.
Now he's back, and he was the one that taught me about energy and taught me that it's not just this like woo-woo thing, but it's actually quantifiable and it's actually measurable, just like grounding is, just like inflammation is, like all that stuff. And what's interesting, even before I met my husband, when my dad died, and I didn't tell you this before, but I wanted to tell you, when my dad died, I was 11. So I was right in that like pubescent stage.
Wow.
And my pain, because there was 4 of us kids and my mom was a widow at 38 with like 4 kids under the age of 12 or whatever. No life insurance, like nothing. My dad was a pastor, a chaplain.
Wow.
So my pain, my emotional pain, I internalized, and it turned physical, which we all know that now we know there's a connection. So instead of sending me to a doctor, thank God my mom knew enough to not put me on antidepressants, but she sent me to the chiropractor.
Love it.
And I would go out of school and I would go and lay on the chiropractor's table, and he would adjust me and then put me on, some TENS units and stuff like that. And I remember that was my therapy, because what it opened up in me when he did the adjustments, and when I was able to do a lot of the manipulation, it opened up that grief that I wasn't able to get out. So I felt it physically in my body, the pain. I always said, oh, my neck is out, my back is out. But probably at 11 years old, that was my way of communicating that I needed to go somewhere to realign, which I certainly wasn't that smart. But my body was saying, go to someone that can help heal you, but only by helping your body heal itself, but by doing those manipulations. And I mean, my husband does the same thing. When you work on the body and when you release that energy and allow that energy to flow, that's like, I still say, I mean, ion biome and get yourself a good chiropractor.
Yep. The 2 things you do over and over again. That's what I say too. So you know what's interesting? What's really interesting about that story is I don't think enough people realize that physical, emotional, and chemical stress will lock you in your midbrain. And your midbrain is the reptilian brain, and it is the highly reactive part of our brains. And if you don't train your brain or have hacks like chiropractic, there's so many, meditation, breath work, the cold plunges, some fasts will do this. If you don't have techniques to pull you out of that and put you in your prefrontal cortex, you will stay in your midbrain forever. And somebody's in their depression. Yes. Or they're really reactive. Like I'm seeing it this year where, you're interacting with somebody and they're like short with you. And I just think, they're in their midbrain. But that story of what happened to you with the chiropractor is literally with one adjustment, you were pulled out of that state. It's the same thing with the cold plunges. Like we need to train the frontal lobe, because this is where we make our best decision. This is where we build our happiest life. But everything in the modern world right now, especially in 2020, is locking us into that midbrain. And that's where the depression and anxiety kicks in.
Oh, yeah. If 2020's taught us one thing, it really just has been like this microscope on everything that we're doing wrong as a society. So I want to say, like, it's been the great divide. It's also been like the great reset and all these things that it's just like allowed us to sit in something that's so uncomfortable. And a lot of us have adapted and changed. And it's going to be a year that we never forget, because it's been this eye-opening, like, oh my goodness, I had no idea that I was this stressed. Oh my goodness, I had no idea that I was doing all this stuff. Like, because you just are on this bandwagon of go, go, go.
Oh, so true.
And bringing it back to fasting, that's what I love about starting the new year with a fast, because
love it.
It changes your state. It takes you out of like just the go, 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 make food, make food, eat food. Subconsciously, you're not even hungry, but you're just grabbing for a bowl of whatever because it's right there.
What fast are you doing? Sorry, what fast are you doing?
So I'm doing it together with Kion, who's a company that I love. And it's just, everyone can choose their fast.
Oh,
so it's, you know, whoever wants to join, it's for free. And I really, really encourage people to do a fast that's right for them in their season. And it starts on January 11th. I am personally not starting on the 11th because it's the week before my period. So I will be joining in a sense, but I won't be doing the fast. I'm going to be doing it the next week because I have my period now. So right on the 11th is literally right, like the week before. But you can do, it's anything. You can literally do an intermittent fast. People who've never fasted before. I don't know. Would you encourage like starting with an intermittent fast instead of jumping?
Yeah, or push your breakfast back an hour. Like the easiest way is to start pushing your breakfast back an hour. And then if you're not really uncomfortable enough, you should push it back 2 hours. Like the goal is to get to that discomfort, because when you get to that discomfort, that's where you adapt and you grow and you're stronger.
That's where you change.
It's actually there is a philosophy in health called a hormetic stress. And this is, the ice baths is a good example of this. Fasting is a good example. When you put enough, just a little bit of stress on the body, it has to adapt in a positive way. So if somebody's never fasted before, they should push the breakfast back an hour, maybe push it back 2 hours. You want to go right to that, this isn't really fun place, and hang there as long as you can. But intermittent fasting is 13 to 15 hours without food. It is the first step for most people to just get sort of mastered. Once you get comfortable there, then you can progress to longer fasts.
Yeah, because I've been doing intermittent fasting for years, and it's just something that I loved. It was honestly convenient for me because I didn't have to think about food constantly.
Yeah.
And then when the convenience wore off, I just realized that I actually felt better. Yeah. And that I wasn't constantly digesting and constantly putting my body like in this state of wanting to lay on the couch to take a nap because I'm just digesting, you know, and it was just retraining. And then I moved to more of like a cleanse where I did back in the day, like 15 years ago, an Isagenix Cleanse.
Oh yeah.
That was, you know, that was like a meal shake. So it was like a liquid fast for breakfast, and then a meal, and then liquid. And then you do like 2-day fasts on either side. It was still a caloric fast, but, you know, you had like some kind of tablets or wafers or something. And for the first time from years of depression, like my identity was depression. For the first time, I didn't realize how much I didn't taste and how much I didn't enjoy food because it was just constantly there. I was also smoking and drinking heavily and, you know, taking antidepressants and all that stuff. So when I was weaning off of that and doing my first cleanse/fast, I think it was only 7 days. And my first meal, I will never forget my first meal after I completed that fast. Because you get a sense of joy of just completion. It's like finishing a marathon. Like you really, when you set your mind,
you can do it.
Yeah, when you set your mind,
you can do it. Nobody can do it for you.
Absolutely, yeah, it's all in your control. But I remember that first meal where I was like, I couldn't believe all of the taste buds. I felt like it was Disneyland in my mouth, and it was probably a piece of broccoli. But it was just exploding with flavor that I had completely diminished my taste buds and diminished that connection between the brain and all of the things that you get from actually enjoying food. Yeah. That was after my first cleanse or after my first fast. And then now I've been fasting for 10, 15 years.
Love it.
You know, everything from caloric to, I've never done more than a 1-day water fast. I've never done longer because I still was like just postpartum. I feel like I'm just kind of coming out of the postpartum fog now. But I'm very looking forward to doing different stuff like that. So fast mimicking diets, you know, all that stuff.
When you decide to do a longer fast, let me know. I'll coach you through it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You'll be my phone call.
The interesting thing on that, I just want to point out, because I think this is a part of food addiction or how we use food that we're not aware of, which is food is a dopamine rush to the brain. And so you get that dopamine rush before you even put the food in your mouth. Like
just the thought of it, yeah.
Yeah, the thought of it, you're reaching for it. And so just like we can get insulin resistant, we can get dopamine resistant. And what happened to you in that time period, and we see this with fasting all the time, is you take that dopamine surge out. And when you take it out, it's not like it's really fun. I mean, you can have a moment of like, I don't feel so good. But if you hang in there long enough, you actually reset your dopamine receptor sites. And now when you go and eat the food, you get a dopamine rush, but those receptor sites are actually inviting them in, and you experience the pleasure of the food more. This, to me, this is why I do like anywhere from a 36 to a 72-hour fast once a quarter, is just to like take that, all the sensory food out of the equation so I can reset that and I can appreciate food again. It's so easy to slip into that old pattern of like you're eating, you're talking, you're watching TV, you're dealing with your kids. You're not even thinking about the pleasure of food, and yet you're saturating those dopamine receptor sites.
Yeah, so. And honestly, even just I hate using the word, so I'm going to try and use a different word, but just the accessibility of it, just the privilege of food,
right.
You know? Right. Our generation completely, and obviously now we know how many people are struggling. We don't know, but we know enough how many people are struggling, even in America, which feels like a third world country, right. By the DMs that I get with people struggling to put food on their table. But it really, with fasting, there's so many things that happen on a cellular level, so many things that happen emotionally, but really it brings you into a place of gratitude, and it brings you into a place of empathy, where you realize that it's not that accessible for a lot of the world. And when you go into that place of empathy, it changes everything, because your focus changes, your vision changes. You realize that the money that you're just mindlessly spending on food, you could be allocating to different resources, or you could be giving to another member of your tribe that you don't even know, that's been giving their children pasta every morning for breakfast because that's all they have. And it just, it allows you to expand and to grow and to continue to be in community with other people. And it's not just about you and your own little world, which also helps with depression, because you realize you're not alone. And if you're going to compare yourself up when you're laying there depressed, just eating all this food and watching everyone else's highlight reel, you have to compare yourself down. And when you take that away and you feel that discomfort, you realize that a lot of people are feeling that discomfort on a daily basis, and it's not a choice.
So well said. So well said. Yeah, I heard somewhere the other day that, and I loved this description of eating, that when we cook a recipe, that maybe it was a recipe of our ancestors, or like grandma's cookies, or something that got passed through the years. When we're actually cooking that recipe, it's like the metaphoric moment where we're going back in the past and connecting with grandma who created that recipe. It's like our connection to the past. And you just gave me the insight as I was listening to you talk, that fasting is our connection to the whole planet, because there are so many people that are starving. And in that moment where you're feeling uncomfortable, it is a great time to realize millions and millions and millions of children, we could just stay with the children, are experiencing that same kind of discomfort. And it normalizes the playing field, in my opinion. It gives us compassion, but it also lets us understand it doesn't matter what color we are. It doesn't matter what religion we are. That we're all human beings that are connected. And if you look at that discomfort as connection and not as a nuisance, there's such a huge opportunity in that moment to strengthen your compassion muscle. And and then you get to turn within and go, oh, wait, okay, so I'm uncomfortable, but I'm connected to other people that are uncomfortable and don't have a choice to not eat. but I also have the opportunity to really get to know my body. So one of the things I love to do when I'm in a longer fast is listen to the mind chatter that shows up. It is crazy. Like,
it's just like when you're in an ice bath. It's the exact same thing, where it's the discomfort, and those voices are on loudspeaker.
Oh yeah. Like if you want to know what's holding you back in life, like jump in an ice bath, do a 3-day water fast at the right time, women. Don't just jump in anytime. and you will hear your mind so loud and clear.
Yeah.
And you will be like, one of my biggest things with fasting is my mom, what solved every problem that I had growing up was solved with a home cooked meal. So if you came home. And
it's that generation, right?
Yeah.
Because it really is a way of showing love.
Yeah. If you came home with a problem, she made you a meal and sat down and gave you love. So now what happens when you adopt a fasting lifestyle, I had to realize that food was love. And so if I took food away, where was love? And that's where I really got to discover self-love and go, okay, love is still here. Love is in this body that has an intelligence to actually do something amazing right now because I took food out of the equation. And I wouldn't have gotten that if I had done, Weight Watchers or, not to throw anybody under the bus, but the outside in models of manipulating health. This to me is the true essence of getting to where health lies within you and identifying where you are being stuck. And once you identify it, you can overcome it so beautifully.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're in control of it. Yes. Because there's nothing better than a home cooked meal by your mother. Oh my God, I would give millions of dollars to have my mom come and cook me a meal. Like, it means everything. But again, it's you have to reframe it, like you said, and realize that, look at our culture. Like, now weddings are around food, funerals are around food, baby showers are around food. Every single time that there's community, there's around food, which is, it's there for a reason, because food is to be enjoyed, and it's to be, like you said, being like a tribe, going back. I'm sure Dr. Zach has a way better explanation.
I heard a great story that he told. I was asked to be on a panel that he was doing, and he told a story, and I love this. He always has such wise things to say.
I know, it's crazy.
He said he was at a dinner table in Hawaii with some Indian chief, right? Because that's who he is. Like, he's
of course.
They kept an empty chair, and they were talking about the quality of the food, and he went off on this long diatribe about food quality and regenerative agriculture, and the chief, right? The chief, when he got done, the chief said, "You're absolutely wrong. That everything you just said has nothing to do with food." He's like, the number one thing I know. And he tells the story, and I was like, what do you mean I'm wrong? I can't be wrong, right? He said, the number one impact on your food and how it will take care of your body or not take care of your body is who you're eating food with. And then he turned to the empty chair, and he said, we leave this empty chair at all of our dinners to invite a guest in to our community so we can always have food amongst new friends.
Wow.
I know, right?
Powerful.
That was Zach. That was big. But I was like, oh my God, it got me thinking about who I eat with now, not just what I eat.
I know, because it really is all connected. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because food, it's not to be feared, and it's not to be controlled. It really is about freedom. And so much of how we've lived is like you said about your mom, grandma's cooking and grandma's baking, and it's a way of showing love, and it's also a way of causing sugar addiction in children, because when they're good, you get a treat. If you finish all the food on your table, you'll get dessert. Did you get a boo-boo? Oh, come here, I'll give you a lollipop. Where it's like,
that was my mom. That was my mom.
Or just give them a hug, and then they don't have to be good to have sugar.
Yeah.
But it is.
Or what about telling them, give them a hug, and then just say, you have every power that you are looking for. Every sense of relief is lying within you right now. Why don't you go out into nature, and I'm sure you'll find it when you go climb the tree outside.
Yeah. And I'm right here. I'm right here with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. Woo! Can I just ask?
This is why we needed a 3-hour podcast.
No, I know, totally. But I would love to do more of these because there's just so much insight and there's so much quality around not just like the but everything, all of like the tissue and sinews and all of the good stuff that's like this reduction sauce of
I love
amazing.
It. Well said. Well said. Well,
go ahead.
One thought, I told you this, I love watching your life on Instagram. And one of these days I may just show up at your little tiny house with your beautiful family, just because I'm like, you guys look like you're having so much fun. And you had a picture that said, all of you wearing the shirts that say, I can do hard things. And I'm like showing my 20-year-old and my 18-year-old. I'm like, isn't that cool? We need a family photo like that with those sweatshirts on. And they're like, oh, okay, Mom. So anyway, someday I may just randomly show up in your world.
Oh, I would love it. Believe me, my 17-year-old is not wearing the sweatshirt. It's my little kids who I still get to dress. They're wearing the sweatshirt.
I love it.
But okay, can you, just one quick question can you tell me, because I kind of know why, but why should women not fast for the week before their period? You touched on it for the progesterone, but can you kind of go a little bit more into why that's not beneficial and why it's actually harmful? Like why you as a woman really need to know where your cycle is in order to of what to feed it and what not, like what's beneficial and what's harmful?
Yeah, so here's the most simplistic way to understand it is your body starts to make progesterone about day 18, 19 of your cycle, and then it will peak on day 21. Now, most women have a cycle that's somewhere between 28 to 30 days. I mean, we're all different. Again, there's not like a cookie cutter formula here. But that's what I was gonna ask. I'm like, basically, since I got my period back from Ocean, I'm 42. And since I got my period back after breastfeeding, I've been on like 24, 25 days, which is interesting. I've always been a 28 day. Yeah. So you need to go about 10 days before that. And think of it like a ramping up. So 10 days before do you track your cycle? Do you have it on a tracker?
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's why I know.
Yeah. And I think every woman should. I laughed that I started tracking my cycle at 48. I'm like, wait, what? I'm tracking it and I only have a few more years left with it. It's kind of fun.
No, but whenever you can, I said this on a podcast before. I don't only track my cycle for myself. We have it on our family calendar.
Oh my
because
God.
it's so good for Arlen to know when I am a little bit more irritable or when I am feeling certain things, because he literally, instead of being like, oh baby, you getting your period, and I'm like, because that's always what happens. But he can have I know he can have more of a gentle and understanding approach of going, okay, I see this is where she is in her cycle, and it's literally like done amazing things for our marriage, because it should be that open. It's the biggest thing. Our hormones are the biggest thing in our life. And when there's understanding for me and for him, it makes life so much easier.
Yes.
So he knows exactly when I'm getting my period, and so do I.
Oh, I'm going to go home today to my family and be like, okay, not only are we wearing the sweatshirts for Christmas, but you guys are all going to get an app telling you where I am in my cycle. Just want to be.
But wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't that be amazing? We all knew where another person is in their cycle.
We would have more compassion for sure.
Totally.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Yeah, think that we gotta think up like an app or something that we can get, like you would just.
We'll talk about it in private. We'll make one up in private.
I love that idea. So, here's the easiest way to figure it out is look at 24 is the day that your day one of your cycle will start, at around day 24. That sounds crazy, but day 24 is how long your cycle is. Yeah. So 10 days before you bleed is when your body's making the most progesterone. And for a woman who has a 28-day cycle, progesterone will peak on day 21. So yours would be 4 days before that. So you'd have to count back. But it is in that peak of needing progesterone that you do not want to be fasting. You can try some intermittent fasting if you're like a pro at it, no problem.
Yeah.
But you don't want to be keto. You want to go into foods like squashes, beans, potatoes, tropical fruits, citrus fruits, chocolate if you crave chocolate. You want nature's carbs in that moment. And that's why you crave it.
And that's why you crave it. Exactly.
Yeah. So don't go into a water fast. Don't go into a 24-hour fast. There's so many women that we've seen that do one meal a day, and they're losing their period, and they're getting very anxious, and they're going into menopause way too early because they already have declining progesterone. If you want to feel really good, you're going to need that 10-day period before you actually bleed. You need to stop fasting and you need to nurture yourself. And I get a lot of women that say, well, what if I want to lose weight? Well, then on the other, days of the month, then you can fast a bunch and you can go into keto and you can do a lot more rigidity around that. But don't do it that 7 to 10 days before is going to be the hardest. So what I typically start to, because I like the 24-hour fast, it's just very efficient for my for my lifestyle. But I'll start to notice like 10 days before my cycle starts, I'll start to get this like inkling, like, I had it this morning. I was like, it's 9 o'clock and I'm hungry. The old version of me would have said like, just suck it up. The ketones are coming. You're going to be fine. But the more I understand,
beat yourself up.
The more I understand hormones, the more I'm like, let me eat. My body wants me to eat right now because it is that progesterone that you need to make. And that, I call it the chill out phase. Like you need to chill out on the fasting. You even need to chill out on the hardcore exercise. You need to chill out on all the social engagements. That period, 7 to 10 days before, you need to get your butt on the couch and hang out with your friends and watch some Netflix, and you'll be, and your hormones will thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. In regards to the losing weight thing, it's like, you won't, I won't ever lose weight if I'm working against my body.
Yes.
If I'm working with my body and working in those cycles, then the more I'm mindful of that, like you said, at 9 o'clock in the morning, there's not a lot of women out there that'll kind of take a step and be like, oh, I need to do that. But when you fast, when you do resets, when you do mindful things like that, you all of a sudden do turn more mindful and internal, and you're not constantly working against yourself. So you know when to rest, you know when your body, it's going to be super beneficial to rest, to rejuvenate, and to give you more energy and more strength to be more rigid in those other times of your cycle. And that's where the benefits are just going to come flooding in, and it's going to be so much more effortless instead of constantly working, like constantly hitting the treadmill, constantly doing all this stuff where your body's just like, babe, you're not giving me anything here. Like you're not helping me out at all. And in that too, you're just constantly stressing your body, and there's no rejuvenation. There's no just giving yourself grace.
That is where disease is beginning. Just like if we break it, if you're like not motivated by, well, I don't need to lose weight, I feel pretty normal. It is in that moment, that 10-day period where disease is building, and what is happening is you are tanking your progesterone, and your progesterone is the hormone that not only calms you, but it keeps estrogen in check. So if you don't keep estrogen in check, the harmful estrogens are what promote cancer. And it is that one concept. If every woman understood, oh, it's 7 days before my period. Okay, I should probably shift my lifestyle now. I should probably do something different so I can be more nurturing to my body. We wouldn't have breast cancer rates like we have. We wouldn't have women in their 40s dying of heart attacks. Because we would honor what we need. And every 13-year-old girl should be taught that. I actually feel now like I want to go to the schools when they open back up and be like, let me teach your health ed class. I want to teach it because these girls need to understand how to do this differently.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I absolutely agree, because that's what we need. We need education, proper education, and education that it's okay. It's okay to be, it's okay to rest. It's beneficial, and it's absolutely mandatory. Your
Yes.
body is mandatorily begging you to rest so that it can do its job on the other side.
Yes. Yeah, and you're not being lazy. You're being wise. You're honoring yourself. And I just full transparency, I did not learn this till like 47, 48 years old. I was the woman who pushed through everything. Like, I have this picture of Rosie the Riveter in my kitchen. And I used to pride myself in, like, I could be Rosie. Like, I can make a living and be a mom and do all these things. And one day, in my complete exhaustion in my mid-40s, I looked at this picture, and this thought popped in my head. And I actually said it out loud to her. I was like, Rosie, I don't think you had it right. I don't think we were designed to push on through. So you may have given women the okay to be powerful, but now we need a new figure to come about that tells women you can be powerful and you can be gentle with yourself all at the same time. And if you do it around your hormones, you will be a happier, healthier human being. And that's honestly what the planet needs. We need happy, healthy people. That's the essence of who we're meant to be.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
right?
I just love you so much.
I love you. I know. Well, I told you, I'm like, we don't have authentic conversations like this enough as women. And when someone like you, who has a background in modeling, stands up and is your authentic self, you give us you don't realize that what you're doing is giving us permission to be our authentic selves. And it comes across more powerful because you are beautiful. You were in the modeling industry, but when you are real, you give permission without anything else, just showing up in your reality. You give us all permission to be our authentic, real selves. And that's what we need more of, for women especially.
I just want that. I want authenticity. I want it to be okay. I want that freedom. I want women to know they're beautiful. You know, I think especially coming out of the modeling industry, and it's like it's all smoke and mirrors. Yes, there's genetics, and yes, that's fine. But if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, or if I get, you know, who knows what, if my house is on fire and I'm saving my kids and I lose all of my hair and I'm a 3rd-degree burn victim, I still want to feel like I have a voice, and I don't want to get depressed from that. If I'm in a wheelchair, I don't want to be depressed. I want to still have the inside match the outside, or even more. You know, the outside is great, but I feel like the outside comes from something that is just deeply healed and deeply rooted from inside. And I want every woman to feel that type of strength and that type of confidence, because no one can take it away from you. Nothing can take it away from you. And the more you train in your different seasons, like you were saying about going to and teaching the 13-year-old girls, I have that same sense where, like, I want to take every pregnant woman, sit them down and say, don't put your feet up and eat a tub of ice cream every single day. You're now in a marathon. Like, now is the time to train your brain. And postpartum, the more training that you do pre-pregnancy, the more tools and confidence you're going to have in your pregnancy, the more tools and confidence you're going to have postpartum, because God knows the seasons of a woman, because then you're going to hit menopause, and then all these things. It's like every season is a season to gain tools, that it doesn't matter what this looks like, because the tools are inside. And when you fast, and when you cold plunge, and when you do things on purpose that are uncomfortable, it unveils this strength that you had inside of you that no one can take away, and nothing can take away, because you have these tools. You were uncomfortable, and you trained your brain through it, and you trained your body through it. And now it's like you just become stronger and stronger and stronger. And you're working with your body and with your hormones and then you just become this unstoppable force.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like
Watch
you need a
out,
mic
world.
drop. You need a mic drop on that one. You know what, this year, the gift of this year is I was such a future tripper. I would like look at my schedule and I was like, okay, where am I going to travel to? What seminars are we going to? And I found this coming to the end of this year. Somebody asked me if I wanted to do something in April. And I was like, I have no idea what April holds for me. So sure, that sounds fine. But it was freedom in that moment. I was like, I'm not hooked on to time anymore. And thank you, 2020, for giving me. And I think what you're saying is exactly that, is like when we start to go within and we stop trying to put on this highlight reel to the point you had earlier, and we get to know ourselves on all different levels, and knowing your hormones and when to fast and how to eat and what to acknowledge and what you should be like going into pregnancy. Like all of these are just reconnecting us to ourselves. Then it doesn't matter if we're in a pandemic. It doesn't matter if you didn't get the bonus you wanted to get. It doesn't matter what car you're driving. None of that matters, because you're just in relationship with yourself and it feels so good. You don't need that outside dopamine hit.
Yeah. There's such a beauty and a confidence and a contagious energy about that when you have that from within, like you said.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah. I love it.
I mean, I would have another question if you have 2 seconds. If you have 2 more minutes. Another big question that I'm going to get is, can you do any type of fast when you're pregnant or nursing?
So I'm going to say absolutely no. And there's a little nuance there that I want to really point out. So here's the thing about pregnancy. Let's start there. With pregnancy, this is not, you need to be building up with nourishing food and not pull it. Like fasting is about a depletion that kicks in an internal mechanism that heals you. You're not healing, you're growing a baby. So start by understanding that you need to be built up. So I would say no fasting in pregnancy. Now in nursing, you are making milk for your child. And the thing you've got to be really careful of is you don't want to go into these longer fasts where something called apoptosis kicks in, which is the intelligence inside the body goes, oh my gosh, you know what? This cell is really bad. I'm going to kill the cell, and I'm going to take the toxins within the cell and I'm going to send it to fat, which is what's mostly fat is breasts. So your breast milk will absorb all of those toxins. So for nursing women, no longer than 15 hours of fasting. And both of those examples, what you have the opportunity to do, because I hear a lot of pregnant nursing women say, but I want to do something to stay healthy. If there's one thing you could do that would support both you and your child, is build your microbiome. Eat as many different vegetables as you can eat. Get on Ion Biome. Go into the nuts and seed world. Like figure out polyphenol, prebiotic, probiotic. I always say bathe yourself in sauerkraut, because you are going to pass your microbiome down to your child. And every time you are nursing your child, you are passing your microbiome off. Every time your skin is touching the skin of your child, you're exchanging your microbiome. Your partner, it's the same thing. So those are 2 times to really lean into building up the microbiome, because the microbiome is what's going to give your child neurotransmitters to keep them healthy, and is going to help with things like serotonin that keeps them happy and GABA that calms the brain. So you can still be doing something. It's just not fasting.
Yeah, and it's not a time. And I mean, the more that you do work on your microbiome, and the more vast your nutritional panel is, the more satiated you will feel. So you're not looking for a chocolate bar. You're not grabbing for this or for that. The more that you build up your microbiome, and the more satisfied that you feel, because you do need a lot more. I felt like I needed more calories when I was breastfeeding than when I was pregnant. You know, I felt a lot hungrier when I was breastfeeding than when I was pregnant. So, but I also still loved intermittent fasting. So I would, again, just listen to my body on how I felt when I felt that. And it wasn't just like trigger for food, this. It was like, oh, what am I really feeling? Do I actually just need a connection with my husband? Do I really just need like some skin on skin time there? am I completely dehydrated? Like, do I need to be drinking way more? Which when I was breastfeeding, I did too.
Yes.
But it wasn't like a breakfast, lunch, because as you know too, when you have multiple children, you're not eating a hot meal. So you do have to find out, like, it's not just this easy, that's what I tell, and I'm not a doctor, but that's what I tell my people who ask me about the breastfeeding. I say, no fasting when you're pregnant. I mean, I was automatically fasting because I was throwing up and eating
some women
McDonald's fries, but not intentional fasting. And then breastfeeding, again, just know that you need so much more fat than you think. You need so much more hydration than you think. And if you do want to shorten your feasting window, just make sure that you have enough fat and enough calories in that window. If you do want to, like, you know, not have the traditional dinner or the traditional breakfast or whatever, just make sure that your caloric intake supports you supporting another human being.
Right. And to that point, at 17 hours of fasting, you kick in something called autophagy. And autophagy is this intelligence that starts to clean up the cells. And that's where the toxins can really get redistributed. So
that's what you don't want to do when you're breastfeeding.
With breastfeeding, don't go over 17 hours because that's like where that will start to kick in. Yeah. And you can really, again, back to this idea that it's not like you're doing nothing. You can work on building up. And this is why I keep saying fasting heals and food heals. So that's just a time to learn more about what foods are going to heal. And then, you know, in between kids, go in and start fasting, do some detoxing. Then once you start to think about having another kid again, okay, now we got to go back into build up. Just like the monthly cycle, it's just a cycle you have to honor. And both you and your child will thrive.
Absolutely. And knowing that losing weight isn't just from not eating. That's a completely old mentality. Yes. Like, if you're breastfeeding and you want to start feeling stronger with less weight on you, move more. Yes. You know, take your babies, take your children and move more. You don't just have to sit there and not do anything and feel like you're never going to lose the weight.
Agreed.
I mean, you have the rest of your life also to lose the weight. So it's not a concentrated time. You know, you're not breastfeeding your child for 10 years. Yeah. Most of us aren't.
Hopefully not. But if it's your thing, that's all good. But here's what's interesting on weight that I always point out to women and to men, but it's a repatterning that we need to have around weight. So why we hold on to weight is because the body is having trouble dealing with excess. So what is the excess? It's excess food, excess toxins, just excess dopamine rushes. Like, there's so much coming at the body that the body goes, okay, you know what? I can't deal with all of this. So I'm just going to store it down here because I don't want to store it in the internal organs because that might kill the human body. So if you are nursing and you want to lose weight, just remember that the fat is actually saving your life. And it's actually excess. So what could you do to start to work at not making more excess? So you can eat healthy food as opposed to eating junk food. That would be great. To your point, you can go out and walk or move your body. Like, just get back to good old fashioned principles of staying healthy. And you'll find that the body now, like, it's almost like it trusts you. And it'll say, okay, I'm ready to drop weight. I mean, I've seen so many women when they start to get into this, like, let me do some intermittent fasting, let me eat well, what they end up doing is they lose weight effortlessly. And it literally, the way it looks like to me is like they took a coat off and they just, like, a layer of fat just comes off because they're working with the body. That's what we need to all get back to. Yeah.
The coat, and the coat is called pressure. And the coat is called social expectations, and the coat is called stress, and all of these things. But there's movement, there's hydration, there's harmonizing EMFs, there's not having your phone around you. It's, you know, get into proper sleep cycles, circadian rhythm, all this stuff that doesn't typically, it's not like the 70s of diet and exercise. there's a multi-therapeutic approach to wellness, like so many different things, you know, address the household toxins that you have, address your cleaning supplies, your makeup, your skincare, everything it's all putting toxins into your body and stressing out your body, and your body's holding on to weight. Yeah.
And you're unfortunately passing all those down to your children, whether you realize it or not. So it's, you know, you can't start quick enough on cleaning up all those toxins you just talked about. If you are, especially if you're having children, it's like each time you detox, you take those toxins out, you're giving your child a gift, because now you're not passing it on to them. And I think that's one thing we think we pass our genetics on, but no, we pass on our microbiome and we pass on our toxic load. And those two things.
And you pass on your habits too.
And your habits, for sure. Mm-hmm. So there's so much to work on, that those 2 times fasting is not going to be your jam. There will be other times you can fast, but those 2 times, look at something else and do something different. And then when in between kids, now you can learn, like I go through 7 different fasts. There's lots of different ways of fasting that are wonderful for people who are not nursing and pregnant. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so excited for people to get to know you more and to be a part of your community / hopefully it's our community now.
Well, I know. We're gonna conquer the world together.
Yeah. I love it. Oh, I just love it. I love it. And I appreciate you so much. I appreciate your heart. I appreciate your knowledge. And I appreciate you just being able to talk like a normal person, even though you're a doctor.
Thank you. I work on
it. So thank you for your time.
Yeah. It goes back to this idea around, you know, our weaknesses become our strengths. So I always say that when I was a kid, I wasn't the one that was in all the accelerated classes. And my sister was. My sister went to Princeton, Yale, like she teaches at Boston University, like she is super smart. And I was like scrappy. That's how I always explain myself. Like I had to learn to be scrappy because my superpower wasn't like, I didn't grab onto every bit of information that was sent at me, and I didn't have photographic memory. So, but now I look at it and I'm like, I think my superpower now is that I can take this complicated information and bring it to a simple state so that we can all understand it. And I think we need that, not just amongst doctors, but we need it amongst conversations. You know, it doesn't help to impress people with your knowledge. I'd rather be impressed by someone's heart and their mission and their intention than by how well they can read a book and hold on to information.
Yeah, me too. It's so funny because when I first was on your podcast, I told Arland that you feel very much like, I know you grew up in California, right?
Yeah,
but you feel like a New Yorker. You're like, you're like this mix, like this New Yorker, like New Jersey, like hard ass.
I love it.
You like have this just confidence about you, but you're so soft. It's really a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Thank you.
I really love you.
I love you. The feeling is mutual. I really, again, like I said, I have so much admiration for how you show up. And I think that is the most important thing when we're looking at women in general. How about we just all show up in our reality and we just in our messy selves. And when I first came to social media, a lot of people will ask me like, don't you get harsh comments? I'm like, I get harsh comments all the time.
All day long.
Yeah. And do you know that I made a pact to myself that I was on a mission to change the way that people looked at their health. And in order to do that, I needed to make a pact with myself that I would only be me. I was only going to be me. I wasn't going to try to be anybody else. And we need more people on social media that do that. And you do that incredible. I mean, you see it in your platform as well. And each time somebody does that, it really gives women another opportunity to do it for themselves.
Yeah, I'm so grateful. I'm really grateful. And I'm excited to talk to you again.
Yes.
People have a lot of information on all of your stuff. I'm going to go through and kind of sift through and do some slides. There's such incredible information that you gave around fasting. I was going to open up the comments, but honestly, I mean, I've taken so much of your time. It's been an hour and a half. So we'll save that, but people can follow you.
I'll come back.
You, and yeah, I'd love to have you back too.
Totally come back.
Okay.
And I want you back on my podcast too. So
yes,
I love it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In the new year, let's schedule it. I would love that.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay.
I love you. Thank you. Angie.
Love you too. Thanks.
And when I get a picture of my family with the sweatshirt on, I'm gonna send it to you.
Please do. Okay.
Okay.
Please do. Okay. I can't wait.
Have a happy holiday. Okay. Bye.
You too. Thanks. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, you too. Bye.